The proposal. No one wanted. In a galaxy full of stars, ships, and strange worlds, one message traveled faster than light. It crossed the cold moons of Kralis, flew past the fire rivers of Deimos, and echoed in every known corner of the stars. The message was short but powerful. The crown of Zerelia offers peace, gold, and alliance. The princess seeks a husband. All races may apply. At first, it caused a stir. Kings, warlords, and merchants all paused to listen. Zerelia was a powerful planet, rich in crystals, technology, and secrets. A marriage to their royal family would be a dream. But then came the second line of the message. The princess is blind. And just like that, the dreams died. No one replied. No one came, not even out of curiosity. On planet after planet, people whispered cruel things. She must be broken. A blind heir, that's a curse. She can't even see her own groom. What kind of queen would she be? The royal family of Zerelia grew silent. Shame spread like a shadow over their golden city. Their daughter, Princess Alira, sat alone. In her quiet palace garden, her white eyes facing the stars she could never see. She had heard the whispers all her life. Even now she heard her own people call her unworthy. But far away, on a forgotten human outpost at the edge of the galaxy, someone else listened to the message. His name was Mason Rook. He was a mechanic, a station repairman, one of the last few humans left on the rusting spaceport known as Outpost Echo. The station was half dead. Its power flickered, the air filters wheezed, and most of the ships were falling apart. Mason wasn't important. He wasn't rich. He didn't come from a noble family. He lived among broken machines in silent halls. But when he saw the message, he didn't laugh. He watched the words appear on his dusty screen. Then he leaned back in his chair and read them again. The princess is blind. He looked out the small window above his workbench. The stars outside blinked like tiny hopes in a dark sky. He remembered his younger sister, blind since birth. He remembered how the world had treated her, like she was weak, like she was nothing. But she had been smart, kind, stronger than most soldiers he knew. Mason stood up, wiped his hands, and whispered, "Maybe she just needs someone who sees her, not her eyes." He didn't have armor, he didn't have a warship, but he had heart, and he had courage. He opened the reply channel. It was old and slow. It buzzed and crackled, and still he spoke clearly. "This is Mason Rook of Outpost Echo. I accept the proposal. I will come." The message was sent. No one expected him. No one believed a human, especially a poor mechanic, would ever dare respond. But the next day on Zerelia, the palace guards stood in shock. A blinking alert lit up the royal screen. A single response had come through. The queen's voice was cold. "Who sent this?" The royal assistant cleared his throat nervously. "A human from a dead outpost," the king frowned. "A human? We haven't spoken to Earth's kind in years." The queen waved her hand. "Reject it." But Princess Alira, sitting quietly in the corner, raised her head. "No," she said softly. Everyone turned. The room went silent. Her voice was gentle, but firm. "Let him come." "But, Your Highness, he's no prince, he's no warrior." Alira's pale lips curved into the smallest smile. "Exactly. Maybe. That's why he's different." And just like that, the message was accepted. Back. On the outpost, Mason received the reply. He stared at the screen, barely believing it. "Arrival approved. Transport ship will reach you in 2 cycles." He laughed softly. Then he walked to his ship, a small dented thing he had been repairing for years. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't fast, but it would fly. He packed a single bag, fixed the engine with one final kick. Then he whispered to the empty station, "Let's see what a human heart can do." As the stars stretched around him and the ship jumped into hyperspace, Mason had no idea what waited for him. Royal tests, alien stares, cruel traditions, but he didn't care. He wasn't there for gold. He wasn't there for power. He was there for her. The flight to Zurelia. The stars moved like silver rivers as Mason's small ship entered hyperspace. Alone in the cockpit, he stared ahead, gripping the controls tightly. The engines groaned. Lights flickered. His ship was old, patched together with scraps from forgotten wars. But it flew. Behind him, his bag held only the basics: one shirt, an old journal, and a photo of his sister. He didn't bring weapons. He didn't bring armor. He brought hope. As he traveled toward Zurelia, whispers filled the galaxy. The human accepted the blind princess. He must be a fool. He's after gold, not love. Humans are desperate creatures. The rumors spread faster than his ship. On Zurelia, nobles gathered in gold-towered cities drinking sweet fire wine and laughing. A blind princess and a dirty human? This is madness. But not everyone was laughing. Far in the royal chambers, Princess Elira sat in silence. Her fingers traced the carved surface of a glowing stone, one she kept close for comfort. She could not see Mason. She didn't even know his voice yet. But her heart beat a little faster every time she thought of him. She didn't know why. Maybe it was because he chose her, not for power, not for fame, but because he heard her story and didn't turn away. That had never happened before. 2 days later, Mason's ship dropped out of hyperspace. Before him floated the bright blue and gold planet of Zurelia. Its rings sparkled. Its clouds danced. Its royal city sat like a golden crown wrapped in mist, but Mason wasn't welcomed. The moment he entered orbit, 3 silver attack ships surrounded him. A voice barked from the comms. "Human vessel, stop your engines, prepare for inspection." Mason sighed. Here we go. His ship was pulled into a large docking bay. Bright lights blinded him as robotic arms scanned every inch of his ship. Soldiers in glowing black armor marched in. He stepped out calmly. His clothes were simple. His hands, greasy from repairs, the lead guard sneered. "This is the one who dared respond?" Mason looked him in the eyes. "Yes, I'm here for Princess Elira." The guard laughed. "You'll be lucky if you make it to the palace." The journey to the royal city was quiet and cold. The ship they gave him was smooth and fast, but no one spoke to him. The soldiers guarding him stared with hard, empty eyes. When they reached the capital, Mason's breath caught in his throat. The royal palace wasn't a building. It was a floating island, surrounded by waterfalls that fell into glowing clouds. Crystal bridges stretched between towers. The ground shimmered with starlight. And yet, it felt empty. The beauty couldn't hide the sharpness in the air. The judgment. Every servant who passed him looked away. Every noble who saw him whispered behind fans and robes. "He's not one of us. He's ugly. He's poor. He's human." But Mason didn't lower his eyes. He kept walking. They brought him into the Hall of Trials, a massive chamber lined with alien judges. Creatures with blue skin, burning eyes, and floating hair. The queen and king sat high above, faces cold as ice. The queen's voice rang out. "Mason, Rook of Earth, do you think marrying our daughter is a game?" Mason stood tall. "No, Your Majesty." "What makes you worthy?" He didn't blink. "I don't know if I'm worthy, but I'm honest. I'm loyal. And I don't see her as a curse." The court fell silent. Then a loud voice shouted, "Test him!" The room transformed. From the floor rose 3 doors, each marked with strange glowing symbols. "You must pass one test. Choose a door. Your fate lies beyond." Mason looked at the doors. One had fire drawn on it. One showed water. The third had nothing, just darkness. He walked to the dark one. "Why this one?" the queen asked. Mason smiled. "Because it's the only one that scares me." The room inside was pitch black. No sounds, no lights. Suddenly, a whisper echoed. She is broken. You will fail. Mason stood still. Another voice. You want to fix her. That's not love. He clenched his fists. The voices changed, becoming those of nobles, soldiers, even his own father. They mocked him. They questioned him. They tried to make him turn back, but he kept walking. Finally, a light appeared. A small, soft glow. A figure stood there, a mirror version of himself, but with empty eyes. The copy spoke. Do you really believe a blind alien princess deserves love? Mason stepped forward and answered firmly. Yes, not because she's a princess, not because she's blind, but because she's a person, and no one deserves to be left behind. The mirror shattered. The door opened. Mason stepped out. The hall gasped. Even the queen's lips parted slightly, and far above them all, behind a curtain of silk, Elira smiled. Meeting the princess. For the first time in Xerelian history, the Hall of Trial stood quiet. Mason Rook, a simple human mechanic from a dying outpost, had passed the test of shadows, a trial designed to break the mind and twist the heart. Many nobles had failed it. Some never returned. But Mason walked out stronger. Now, he stood in the royal gardens, waiting. Guards in silver armor stood at every path. The sky above glowed with soft colors. Birds with glassy wings flew overhead. A fountain whispered beside him. He wiped his hands on his pants. His palms were sweaty. This wasn't a test of strength or courage now. This was something deeper. He was about to meet Princess Elira. A soft sound came from behind the marble arch. Not footsteps, not wind, something lighter. Then, she appeared. She wore a dark violet dress that shimmered like starlight. Her long white hair fell over her shoulders. Her eyes, cloudy, pale, and unseeing, looked forward with calm grace. 2 attendants followed behind her, but she walked alone. Mason's heart thudded. She was beautiful. But more than that, she looked strong, not weak, not fragile, not broken. She stopped a few feet from him. Are you the human? She asked softly. Mason stepped forward. Yes, Your Highness. Don't call me that, she said. Just Elira. He smiled. All right, Elira. She tilted her head. Most people lower their voices when they speak to me. As if I'm made of glass. I don't think you're made of glass, Mason replied. You walked into the garden alone. She gave the smallest smile. I hate being led. They stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Elira asked, Why did you come? Mason looked up at the sky, then back at her. Because I thought, maybe you needed someone who doesn't care about your eyes. No, she said. Many don't care about my eyes. They care about my crown, my wealth, my father's army. Mason nodded. I don't want any of that. I came because I thought you might be someone worth knowing. Elira turned her face toward the sound of the fountain. And if I told you I have visions? He paused. Visions? I see things. Not with my eyes. With my mind. They come in dreams. They burn like fire. The priests say it's madness. The court calls it shame. And what do you call it? She turned to face him directly, her eyes blank, but her voice sharp. I call it truth. Mason stepped closer. Then, that's what I believe too. From behind the trees, nobles whispered. He's too close. She shouldn't speak of the visions. The council won't allow this. But Mason didn't notice. Elira reached out suddenly, her hand hovering midair. I don't know your face, she said. Let me know your shape. He gently placed her hand on his cheek. Her fingers traced his jaw, his brow, the tired lines around his eyes. You feel older than you sound, she said. I've lived in broken places, he answered. You're not afraid of me? He shook his head. You're the first person who's asked me what I believe. Her hand fell to her side. I dreamed of you, she whispered. Mason blinked. What? 2 nights ago. A voice in the dark. A heart not seeking gold. A soul that walked through shadow and did not run. She paused. I didn't know if it was real. Maybe it is now, Mason said. That night the palace glowed brighter than ever. Nobles drank and danced, pretending everything was fine. But behind the high walls, a storm was brewing. In the war chambers, Elira's older brother, Prince Kyle, watched the recordings of Mason's trial. His eyes were sharp, his fists clenched. This human is dangerous, he said. He passed the trial of shadows. The general beside him nodded. He won the people's sympathy. Even the servants are whispering. He cannot marry her, Kale said darkly. She was never meant to rule, she was meant to stay hidden. The general hesitated. You mean? Kale's voice turned cold. Prepare the old assassin. The human must not live to see the sunrise. But deep in the quiet garden, Mason and Elira sat side by side. She told him stories of her dreams, her isolation, her loneliness. He told her of rusted halls, broken ships, and starlight through cracked windows. They didn't hold hands. They didn't kiss. But something began that night. Something stronger. Not romance. Trust. And in the distance, through the glowing trees, something watched them. Something with a blade. Something without a heart. The secret inside the throne room. Before sunrise, the royal palace of Zerelia stood still. The towers cast long shadows across the glowing garden paths. Servants whispered. Guards changed shifts. But high above it all, in a sealed chamber behind the golden throne, a secret door opened quietly. Princess Elira stood inside. Alone. Mason had just left after their midnight walk. They had talked for hours again. No royal rules, no fake smiles, just honesty. He had asked her questions no one else dared, and she had given him answers she never told even her family. Now, something inside her heart was stirring, not just hope, but strength. She pressed her hand on a carved panel. The stone wall slid open. Inside the hidden room, crystals hummed softly. The walls glowed with moving light, and in the center of the chamber stood a single orb, floating above, an ancient pedestal. This was the seeing core. Only the royal bloodline could use it. Elira stepped closer. She took a deep breath and placed her hand above it. The orb lit up instantly. Inside, a vision spun to life, shadows of possible futures, tangled like vines. In one, Zerelia burned. In another, her brother wore the crown soaked in blood. In a third, Mason stood beside her, holding her hand while alien leaders bowed in peace. Tears touched the corners of her eyes. I'm not broken, she whispered. I was never broken. Suddenly the walls cracked with a sharp tone. Unauthorized access detected, a mechanical voice said. Elira turned. The hidden door slammed shut. She was trapped. Meanwhile, Mason walked back toward his guest quarters. The palace halls were quiet, too quiet. Then he heard it, a soft whisper, followed by a faint metallic click. He froze. Behind him, a shadow moved. He ducked just in time as a blade sliced the air above his head. A tall figure in black armor landed. Beside him, silent, fast, deadly. Mason didn't wait. He rolled aside, grabbed a broken piece of pipe from a maintenance cart and stood ready. The assassin didn't speak. He charged. Mason fought back, blocking the blade with the pipe. Sparks flew. His arms shook with every hit. He was no soldier, but he was quick and he didn't stop moving. Why are you doing this? He shouted. The assassin finally spoke. You are a crack in the royal mirror. You don't belong. Mason narrowed his eyes. Kale sent you. The assassin didn't answer, but it was clear. They fought through the hallway. Mason took a cut to his shoulder. Blood trickled down his arm, but he used everything. Walls, tables, wires to stay alive. Finally, he grabbed a power cable and slammed it against the floor. The spark exploded. The assassin cried out as the energy hit his suit, stunning him. Mason didn't wait. He ran. He had to find Elira. Back in the sealed room, Elira placed both hands on the orb again. "Show me more," she whispered. This time, the vision revealed her brother Kyle, standing before the alien council declaring her unfit to rule. He was using her blindness as a weapon, telling them she had gone mad, that her visions were lies. Then, the vision shifted. She saw Mason, surrounded by nobles, standing alone, betrayed, and her own death. She gasped. "No," she said. "I won't let it happen." She pressed her hand against the door. "Open," she cried. Nothing happened, but then, a voice called from the other side. "Elira, are you in there?" Her heart jumped. "Mason?" He pounded on the wall. "I know you're in there. The guards won't help me. Something's wrong. I think Kale." Before he could finish, the secret door opened. Elira stood there, her face calm, but her voice firm. "Come inside, I have to show you something." Mason entered the hidden chamber, looking around in shock. "What is this place?" She walked to the orb. "It's called the Seeing Core. I've come here in secret for years." He stepped closer. "And it shows the future?" "Not one future, many," she said, "but the paths are changing." Elira held her hand out. Mason took it. The orb lit again. This time he saw. He saw war, betrayal, death, and then a path where he and Elira stood before the galaxy, united. Blindness didn't matter. Bloodline didn't matter. Only trust did. "It chose you," she said. "What?" "The vision chose you as the turning point." Mason let go of her hand. He looked at the orb, then at her. "Why me?" Elira stepped forward. Her voice shook, but her face stayed steady. "Because you saw me before anyone else did." Just then, an alarm blared across the palace. Guards shouted. The wall screen lit up with a royal order. "The human has attacked a royal officer. Seize him." Mason turned to her. "It's Kale. He's framing me." Elira took a deep breath. "Then we can't stay here." She turned to the orb, whispered something ancient. It faded to dark. Then she grabbed Mason's hand. "Come," she said. "It's time the galaxy sees the truth." And together, they disappeared into the shadows, ready to face the storm. The assassination attempt. The sky over Zeralia turned blood red, not from sunset, from warships. Prince Kale had activated the Sky Defense Protocol, claiming a human enemy had infiltrated the palace and threatened the princess. Elite soldiers lined the walls. Giant drones hovered above the city. Every exit was locked. Inside the palace, screens across the halls flashed. "Human traitor detected. Detain immediately." Mason ran beside Elira through hidden tunnels beneath the palace floor. The air was cold. The walls were damp. Glowing stones lit their path. Neither spoke. They were being hunted. Finally, they reached a quiet room, once used by royal gardeners. It was old, filled with plant roots and stone benches. Elira closed the door behind them and touched the wall. A soft hum silenced the room. "We're safe. For now," she said. Mason leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Kale's not just afraid of me. He's afraid of you." "He's always feared me," she replied. "Not because of my blindness, but because I see too much." Mason looked into her face. "Why not tell your parents?" She gave a bitter smile. "They already chose him. Years ago." He nodded. "Then it's time we take the truth to someone else." She tilted her head. "Who?" Mason took out a small device from his bag. "This is a beacon. If I send the right signal, my friend on a trade station near the border can relay it to other alien leaders, the ones Kale can't control." Elira frowned. They won't trust a human. Maybe not, but they might trust you. If they hear you speak. She hesitated, then nodded. But before Mason could activate the beacon, boom! The wall exploded. Smoke filled the room. Heat rushed in. Mason threw himself in front of Elira as a metal claw burst through the flames. From the fire stepped a creature, in a cloak of burning threads. Its face was hidden, but its body gleamed with weapons. A Xerelian assassin lord. Silent. Ruthless. Built to kill royalty, and anyone who stood in the way. Mason grabbed a broken tool from the bench. Stay behind me. Elira didn't move. She stood tall, her white eyes calm. Mason, she said. This assassin isn't just here to kill you. The creature stepped forward. She's right, it growled. Mason swung the tool hard. Sparks flew, but the assassin dodged and slammed him into a wall. Pain shot through his back. Elira raised her voice. Who sent you? The assassin paused, then answered coldly. Your brother. He wants you gone before sunrise. The throne must be his alone. Mason groaned, crawling back to his feet. You're making a mistake. If she dies, the visions die. The future of Xerelia dies. I don't care, the assassin replied. I serve the bloodline. Elira stepped forward. Then serve me. The assassin froze. What? He hissed. I am the bloodline, she said. My blood is royal. My voice is law. If you serve the crown, then I command you stop. Silence. Then, the assassin lunged. But this time, Mason was ready. He slammed the beacon into the creature's chest. It sparked and exploded with a shockwave of electric energy. The assassin flew back, hit the wall, and collapsed, unmoving. Smoke. Mason dropped to his knees, breathing hard. That was close. Elira helped him up. Her hand was steady. You saved my life, she whispered. You saved mine first, he replied. Minutes later, they reached an old signal tower deep beneath the palace. The royal engineers had abandoned it decades ago. Mason reactivated the beacon. He looked at Elira. This is your chance. Speak. She stood before the camera, her face calm, her voice strong. To all leaders of the free systems, I am Elira of Xerelia, born blind but not broken. I have seen visions of war and betrayal. My brother seeks the throne not to rule, but to silence. Today I stand with Mason Rook, a human who walked into danger when no one else would. I ask you to hear this message, and judge not my eyes, but my truth. She finished. Mason sent the signal. Now they could only wait. Back in the royal chambers, Prince Kale stood frozen as a servant burst in. My prince. The signal was sent. Kale's eyes burned. To who? Everyone. The entire neutral council. It's already spreading. Kyle gritted his teeth. She wants war, he whispered. Then she'll have it. He pressed a button on his ring. Begin Operation Eclipse. Kill the girl. Destroy the human. Erase them both from history. But in the dark, far below the palace, Mason and Elira held each other's gaze. You could have left, she said. I didn't want to, he answered. She smiled softly. Then we fight together. And far above, across the stars, leaders from a dozen worlds began to listen. The truth about her eyes. The palace walls trembled as emergency sirens howled through the city of Xerelia. All exit ports were sealed. Warships circled above. Every screen across the capital flashed with one order. Capture the human. Eliminate the princess. But Mason and Elira were already gone. They moved through hidden tunnels, past forgotten rooms and ancient halls beneath. The palace, guided by a map Elira had memorized as a child. She had once used these same paths to escape her royal life. Now she was using them to fight for it. They stopped in a narrow chamber filled with broken medical pods. This used to be the royal clinic, Elira whispered. Mason looked around. Looks more like a graveyard. She walked forward, her fingers brushing the edge of a cracked machine. My mother brought me here when I was born. She believed in the visions. But my brother, he didn't. Mason stepped beside her. What did he do? She turned her face toward him. He sealed my eyes. Mason froze. What? She nodded. There was no illness, no accident. When I was a baby, Kale gave orders to the old palace surgeon. My eyes were covered in nanoseal, a treatment meant to block energy vision. I was never allowed to see. Mason's chest tightened. Why would he do that? To make me appear weak, she said. To make me unfit to rule. He didn't want a sister with the power of foresight. He wanted a puppet he could silence. Mason looked at her, anger burning in his eyes. He did this to his own sister? Yes, she said. And the surgeon who helped him? He vanished the next day. Mason clenched his fists. Then we find that surgeon. Maybe he left something behind. They searched the ruined clinic. Dust filled the air. The lights flickered weakly. After half an hour, Mason found a hidden door behind a fallen cabinet. Inside was a small lab, dark but still powered. Files floated in digital storage clouds. One shimmered with a royal seal. Mason opened it. A hologram flickered to life. It showed an alien man in a white coat, eyes wide with fear. If you are seeing this, then truth must finally matter. I am Dr. Halion, once surgeon of House Zurelia. The princess was born with sight beyond sight. Her eyes glowed with the light of futures. Prince Kale feared her. He gave the order. I followed it. I sealed her vision using bio-nanotech. I regretted I hid a reversal code in the princess's own blood. The message ended. Elira stood silently, her body still. Then she whispered, "He hid the cure in me." Mason turned to her. "Then we can undo it." They activated the last working pod. Mason carefully followed the instructions. The machine scanned, Elira's body locating the nanoseal tech. It beeped. Reversal sequence unlocked. Elira lay inside the pod, eyes closed, lips parted. "Are you sure?" "You don't have to," Mason said softly. "You're already strong." "I want to choose," she said. "Not be forced, not by Kale, not by fear." He nodded. "Begin," she said. The process took minutes. Tiny lights danced across her eyelids. Mason stood beside the pod, watching every number, every signal. Then, silence. The pod opened. Elira sat up slowly. Her eyes were no longer pale. They were deep silver now, alive, glowing faintly like twin stars. She blinked, and for the first time in her life, she saw. She looked at Mason, at the shape of his face, at the scars on his arms, at the softness in his eyes. She gasped. A tear rolled down her cheek. You're real," she whispered. He smiled gently. "I was always real." She touched his face, just like she did the first time. But now she saw it too. "Thank you," she whispered. Mason chuckled. "For what?" "For letting me choose," she said. Then her eyes narrowed. "We end this. Tonight." At the same time, Prince Kale stood before the High Council of Nobles. He raised his arm. "This is proof that my sister has betrayed her blood. She sent messages to outsiders. She walks with a human. She brings shame." The nobles looked uneasy. Then a screen lit up. It showed Elira, standing tall. Her voice echoed across the hall. "Brothers of Zurelia, I was blind, but not anymore. Not just my eyes, but my mind. I see your fear. I see your lies. My brother betrayed the throne and the bloodline. But I remember who I am." Kyle growled. "Lies." But no one was listening to him anymore, because Elira stepped into the council chamber in person. Eyes wide open, every noble gasped. Even her mother dropped her royal cup. Kyle backed away, shaken. "This is not possible." She raised her hand. Power isn't in blood, Kale, it's in truth, and your time is over. The wedding that shook the galaxy. The galaxy held its breath. On the central world of Zerelia, the stars above seemed to shine brighter. Warships returned to their docks. Sirens fell silent. The royal palace stood tall, lit by golden fire. Inside, the throne room, once filled with fear, was now filled with awe, because Princess Elira had returned, eyes open, head high, and beside her stood Mason Rook, the human who had defied death, betrayal, and judgment to stand at her side. She had chosen him, and now the galaxy would witness it. Prince Kale had been taken into custody by the royal guards. His crimes, hidden for years, were now revealed. Assassination orders, sealing of Elira's vision, lies to the council, everything. He said nothing as he was dragged away. His silence was the loudest proof of all. The queen, once cold and distant, watched her daughter now with something new in her eyes. Respect. "My daughter," she said softly, "you have done what I could not." Elira faced her. "I only did what was right." The queen looked at Mason. "You stand with her when the galaxy would not. That makes you more than human." Mason simply nodded. "I'm just someone who listened." Soon the palace gardens were prepared. The skies above glowed with lights from 1,000 ships. Leaders from over 40 planets came. Soldiers from old enemies stood side by side. Even distant alien tribes sent gifts, rare stones, floating, seeds, songs of peace. Everyone came to see the blind princess who saw the truth, and the human who believed in her when no one else would. Elira wore a gown stitched with threads of living light. Her silver eyes shone, but not with power, with peace. Mason wore a simple black jacket. Nothing royal, just real. They stood beneath the twin moons of Zerelia, where no ruler had ever married before. The high speaker began, "Today, we do not only join two hearts, we join two worlds, a human and a Zerelian, a mechanic and a princess. A new future begins here." Mason looked into her eyes. "You changed everything," he said. "You saw me," she replied. "Not the crown, not the blindness, just me." He smiled. "And I always will." The speaker raised his staff. "Let this be known across all stars. Zerelia is reborn, no longer ruled by fear or tradition or bloodlines, but by choice. Do you, Princess Elira, take this human as your equal?" She smiled. "I do." "And do you, Mason Rook of Earth, accept her not for what she sees, but for who she is?" He took her hand. "I do. Always." The crowd cheered. The moons glowed brighter. The flowers around them bloomed in perfect sync. And in that moment, across the galaxy, hope sparked, like wildfire. Days passed, then weeks, and the world began to change. On Zerelia, blind children were no longer hidden. They were honored. Alien diplomats requested peace talks, not out of fear but out of admiration. Humans, once seen as weak and lost, were now treated as equals. And the legend of the human who married the blind princess spread from system to system. Mason and Elira ruled side by side, not with weapons but with understanding. He helped rebuild Outpost Echo, turning it into a center for trade and peace. She reformed the council, giving power to voices long ignored, those without titles but full of wisdom. They didn't just rule a kingdom, they changed a galaxy. One evening, years later, Mason sat beside Elira on the palace balcony. The stars stretched far and wide. He looked at her, still amazed. "Do you ever miss the old days?" She smirked. "Being hunted, hiding in tunnels, fleeing assassins?" He laughed. "Okay, maybe not that part." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I miss the moment I first saw your face," she said softly. "Why?" "Because it reminded me what love really looks like." He held her hand, and the stars above, brighter than ever, watched in silence. because in all the darkness of space, a single truth now burned brighter than ever. Sometimes the most powerful vision is believing in someone when no one else does.